Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Hustle Chronicles. Crazy, I know. So you might be wondering, who is this new voice? We are not used to this person who is hosting the show today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, gents, they, them, she, hers, his, whoever is listening, we are going to introduce ourselves. Hi, I'm Funbi. My name is Funbi. I currently work in development consulting, but I freelance podcast produce, and I co-host a podcast with a very dear friend of mine called Living in Limbo, the 20s Tales and Trials podcast. So, and I'm a friend of Jeffrey's. And today's Hustle Chronicles guest is the one and only Jeffrey Oyinlola.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, it's always good to be... it's always good to be in space. It's always good to be interviewed. So thank you very much.
Amazing. How are we feeling today?
I'm good. I've never actually done a full episode where I've been the one that's been interviewed. So this should be fun.
I'm excited. It's like, I feel like everyone who's listening is like, who we are getting to see the mind of Jeffrey at work. Jeffrey the businessman, not Jeffrey the host, not Jeffrey the producer, not Jeffrey the editor. It's Jeffrey running a business and building something here. And so I guess the very first question I'm going to use to kick us off is, Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about you.
Ooh, good question. So hi everyone, my name's Jeffrey. I am the founder of Pick Up the Mic, which is a podcast network that supports students, young people with their development. So we look at it holistically, so not just like their academics and their personal and professional development, but we look at their interests. We know that as a team, we've all been to university, so we know even like in sixth form as well, you're just shoved with this idea of like academics. But then there isn't something that always tailors to like your other interests, like whether you're into gaming or anime or sci-fi and comics and all this stuff. So we try to look at their experience as a whole and say that we create podcasts and content for everyone within that space so that everyone can find something to connect to. And then also, I guess in addition to that, we've like recently started to like do videography, photography and interviews at people's events. So we also want to support like businesses, friends, like collaborators with their events, because we know that like even when we do events ourselves, like we're always like scrambling to try and like get content, because you're just like, oh, it's really good to have content to show people like, oh yeah, this event was really cool, or like we all had a good time. But yeah, sometimes it's a bit hard because you'll just be like, oh, I'm also trying to like manage like where's the food or where's this supposed to be. So I do that. And then my other like my part-time job, so what actually like pays my salary is I work at Somerset House. So they have a Black business residency program where they support Black-owned businesses for 12 months with mentoring, masterclasses and free access to their co-working space. And yeah, I've graduated from my master's last year.
Amazing. He's a man with 2 degrees. My goodness. Guys, what a crazy world. But congratulations on graduation.
Thank
you. You're doing quite a lot.
Yes.
Altogether.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious, what is driving you? You know, what's motivating you to create this business and, you know, make the sacrifices that you're making at the moment? What is the driver? What's the motivator?
That's a good question. Also forgot to say one other thing that I'm gonna like put a plug, because I should. So I also do. So I'm also hosting with this person who called Colin, who runs this like company called Food Source Media. We're doing. So I'm hosting Instagram lives for him to interview like food and drink entrepreneurs.
Sick.
We did our first one like last week Friday, which was really cool. Obviously like I had never done like an IG live interview before, so getting used to like the technology and stuff, and there were a bit of technical issues at the start, but it was really nice. It was like a short 10-minute conversation of just learning about the person's called Ivor Peters. They said if you go to Co-op and you see anything that says like Urban Raja like sandwich-wise, that's them.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it was really cool. It was a really good conversation. Definitely got me like hungry. It was literally just at lunch, and I was just like, yeah, man, we're talking about all this food, and I could really do with
some food.
Really do some food.
Oh, I'm a big old foodie, so now I'm gonna be checking out for those Instagram lives because a girl's gotta eat. Okay. So yeah. Okay.
But yeah, to go to your question about like what drives me. So it kind of comes from like the story of like Pick Up the Mic, which is basically also, if people will see me moving the microphone, it's because I'm still like, I'm getting used to, you know, being on the other foot. But yeah, I think for me, it was because when Pick Up the Mic was going to start, it all came about because in October, I think it was 2020, so I was going to be the BME officer. My student union, they were doing the elections. It was on, because of COVID, everyone was still, at home. Lockdown was still happening, and you couldn't really campaign in person. You couldn't give out flyers and do any of this. So I was just going into group chats, messaging people on Instagram. My friend, he was just like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna blitz." So he's even, funny enough, he's on the team. So Sam was like, I'm just going to blitz through everyone who follows the student union, and I'm just going to send them a message and be like, hey, look, if you're a current student, could you help support my friend?
Yeah.
So I was talking to a lot of people about things that in my manifesto that I would do. And one key thing that I just felt is that a lot of students, don't know about the stuff that's available to them at university that can help them. So whether it's funding competitions, whether it's CV and cover letter support, all of this stuff, which is all free, and you can even get it after you graduate. But also I felt there wasn't a lot of stuff done to support there was a bit of a disconnect between the services as well. So there were all these cool services doing great things to support students, but then it was just if you studied a degree that was funding competitions, if you studied a business degree, then you'd know about it. But if you were, I don't know, someone who did biomed, but just because you might have a passion for business, but just because you're not studying it, you might not necessarily still get that information.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to be the BME officer. I didn't get elected. And I was like, oh, cool. This was obviously in the moment you're just kind of sucks, but I was like, whatever. But yeah, I spoke to my friends and I was just I feel from based on people I was speaking to in group chats were saying, it was just there's a lot of issues that they feel they would like to be addressed. So I was like, cool. Originally we were going to do this Zoom series called Pick Up the Mic, where we're going to bring people and talk about stuff. And yeah, just basically came about that we were just we're kind of all tired of Zoom meetings. We were all, so my two friends that were helping me with it, they were doing their masters. I was doing my final year of my undergraduate. Yeah. And we were all just we're kind of just tired of Zoom meetings. And we were just even if something is recorded for a Zoom meeting and you send the link to people or you tell people oh, this is the link. We were just the big thing is that most of the time, no one goes back to watch it. If you're not there, you're just cool, I missed it. That's it. So instead, I was just hey, look, I've been listening to podcasts. Why don't we try going into the podcasting space? So yeah, none of us had a background in it. None of us sort of knew what we were doing, but we were all just let's just jump onto a Zoom call and do it. So I guess a long way to answer the question, but essentially it's about supporting other people. Is my main thing, because I'm just there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't even pick up the mic to be able to do it. It would if people didn't give me opportunities and stuff, or I didn't know if someone didn't tell me, oh yeah, that you could do this. Then I probably would not be doing Pick Up the Mic. So I basically my drive is that I want other people to get that. So one, get your time in the spotlight. So come share your passion and discuss stuff. But also give people the opportunity to learn about stuff. Because I know you might get emails from your university saying, oh yeah, these are all these cool stuff. But you'll just be that's my university. I'm not really interested in hearing a long spiel about stuff. But instead, you can hear from us and we can tell you about stuff instead.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And it's a great motivator. Okay, so we are back, guys. And, Jeffrey just gave us insight into what his motivation has been to start building this business. And I guess the next question I have for you is, take us on the journey into Pick Up the Mic, what it's like from conception to where it is today. What's that journey been like for the company?
March 20, I don't know if we recorded in March, but March 2021, or actually, let me go back. January, that was when we were going to do this live event where people could come and join on Zoom. And then it was coming towards it and we were just actually, we feel it probably won't do well because we were just a lot of people probably are tired of just having online meetings. So instead we were just cool. We put out a post and we're just hey everyone, this event's been postponed until later, but we're gonna let you guys know what we're currently working on later on. So yeah, we basically maybe in February the three of us, so myself, Nanushka, and Samuel, we just all jumped on a Zoom call, recorded the first episode, and then just published it. So 3rd of March 2021 was when the first episode ever released.
Wow.
And then, we literally were just like, so it started off with, so our first season was mainly like people that we knew or like friends of friends that we just got in touch with. So there's 3 episodes that myself, Samuel, and Anushka hosted. And then the rest were just 7 other people that we either knew of or we like spoke to or then it came to our second season, so we like released our first season. It went well, and we were just like, cool, people liking it. Then Samuel was just like, oh, cool. What about like YouTube? And I was like, well, I don't really know much about YouTube. Like my brother uploads to YouTube, but I was just like, I don't really know anything about like how to manage it, how to grow it, all of this stuff. But he was just like, well, I think one key thing is, if you go to YouTube and you upload it, he was just like, well, then the most important thing you need to remember is that if people like it, people are going to watch it. So I was like, cool. And he was just like, if it's good, it will just keep growing. So I was like, cool, let's just do that. So we started our second season, started uploading. So I also should say, so at the start, we didn't have a name for what it was called. So it was literally it wasn't a registered business then, but it was just like, cool. The idea was called Pick Up the Mic. And then the podcast was also called Pick Up the Mic. I'll get to why the name change is a bit later. But so that second season, we literally just did video, like uploading to YouTube, and it was going really well. So we were like, cool, let's keep on uploading to YouTube. Let's go back and upload our first season as well. Yeah. And it just worked really well. So we then were just like, cool, how can we keep growing? What can we do different? So at that time, as a team, we were just like, oh, well, we watch podcasts, like we all listen to, like some of us listen to podcasts, and we were just like, oh, people add like new things or they do additional segments on their podcast. So we were just like, oh, let's try doing some additional segments. So we had like a comic book one called Comics 101. We had one called Backstage, which was all about like just like fun stuff that you see behind the curtains, behind the scenes of like Pick Up the Mic stuff. So us doing like Never Have Ever or fun stuff like that. We did like speed fire Q&A questions. Yeah. And then we had behind the curtain, which was more of like a deep dive on like some of these podcast discussions that we were having in our main series. So yeah, we did that. It worked quite well. People were liking it. And then, we just kept on adding additional segments. So we later on added like the 2 Maesters. We were still doing our main channel. And then, we got to a point, I think it was like last year, maybe just before, I think roughly maybe just before our birthday. And we were just like, actually, it'll be really good to like go back on everything, like go back, change everything. And instead we were just like, what would be really powerful is if we make we go from being just a podcast with additional segments to being a podcast network. So now we are like a podcast network, and we solely focus on like each of the additional content we were doing before. We said that they could technically all be their own podcast because it's not like they're not long enough to be their own podcast. So we essentially became a podcast network delivering different things. And then, now we're sort of like at the point where, as I mentioned, like we're supporting events, we're doing videography and photography and interviews. And that wasn't something that we like planned from the start, but we were just like, tons of recording. But it was all about like going to do like we would go and do STEM workshops with like young children. So we would like go to their schools, they'd come to the university. And a lot of people ask me like, why did you do that? And I was like, because it sounds like interesting. I get to talk to people about a subject that I'm kind of passionate about and that I really enjoy, rather than just like sitting on the, like working in a lab or doing like solo work. So I always tell people like, just because it might not make sense to others doesn't mean that you shouldn't like try something different or do something different. Because you never know where it might take you. Oh
no, that's really cool. And I guess, would you say your placement year was the seed towards creating Pick Up the Mic and the company today? Was that where the inspiration came from, or was it like?
Kind of. So like, Samuel and Anushka, I only met through that placement. So, so the people who even helped me to do Pick Up the Mic or even to do our first season, I only met them through doing that placement. So I do say like, I probably wouldn't have done it. But also, I'd say like another part is, so I need to give it some love because it's been a while. But I also run a sustainable platform with my sister called New Generation, which is all about inspiring young people to get into sustainable living and sustainable fashion, and sort of showing them that like whether you wear secondhand clothing or you like upcycle, it's not like a bad thing. It's perfectly cool, and it's actually, especially in a cost of living crisis, it's actually more financially viable. And encouraging them to not necessarily dive into like fast fashion trends, but also like doing it from a realistic point, because I do say that like we said it as a team, like we don't we like no one should have to like be told, okay, you're not being sustainable. You're not helping the planet type thing. Because I've also said that it's like what's within your budget and your remit. Yeah. If you can afford secondhand clothing or like you can afford like upcycled clothing, then cool. But if you can't, then I always say like just try like one part of your routine. So whether it's your bathroom routine, your like kitchen routine, like don't feel like your whole life will be sustainable like in one day because you're just like, now I want to commit to protecting the planet.
It's step by step. There's a thing I think about whenever I think about sustainability. Sustainability is a luxury good for lots of people until I believe, the global household income can afford to be sustainable. Sustainability is a luxury that loads of people cannot afford and very few can. And so I think the point you make is quite interesting in that way. And you've been talking a lot about, your team, Anushka, Samuel. And it just shows me that like building this business is not a one-man thing. It's not it's not the Jeffrey Oyinlola show. It's Jeffrey with Anushka and Samuel. These are your co-creators. What has that been like building this business together? How has it impacted your relationships with one another? Because obviously you're friends and now you're business partners working together. Is there always a conflict there? How do you guys find the balance?
It's a good question. It's funny because so like as a team, so we've got like a bit of a bigger team now. But when we started, I think the main thing was Samuel and Anushka felt like, to me, I was just like you said, like it's a group thing. It's not a Jeffrey thing. It's like we all, like I needed their help to do it. It wasn't something that I started by myself and then brought them on.
Yeah.
But I think to them, they were just like, it's your baby, essentially. Because they were just like, you came up with the idea. You came up, like my sister came up with the name, but they were just like, you've been like spearheading it. And even like now, so like Nanushka's still a part of the team, but she's taken a bit of a step back because she's like moved to outside of London.
Yeah.
My friend Samuel, like because of his new job, like he's not always able to like commit time to doing podcast recordings. So to both of them, they've sort of like taken a step back and have been like, whatever you like, we're happy with what you want to do. If you want to like come and ask us feedback and check in and stuff, like they're happy to do that. But they just feel like it's not like it's not like our thing. To them, it's like a Jeffrey thing. To me, I'm like it's a group thing, but I think for a lot of them, they're just like, because I like within the team, and I'm not like I don't say it because I expect them to. Like I've also said like everyone's got like people can commit whatever they can. I would never expect someone to do this.
Alrighty, hello again, ladies and gents. We are back with the Hustle Chronicles. I go very sing-songy with the end, but it's literally the Hustle Chronicles. It's great. I love it. I'm not a theater major, but I'm a big theater fan. So I like to have fun with falsettos and whatever.
Favorite theater show?
You see, that's hard for me to choose. It's like asking me what my favorite food is. They're just all so good. Like I can't decide, But I think if I was to pick modern theater that I've absolutely loved watching, Hamilton. I think Lin-Manuel was incredibly genius with what he did there. And I see his genius play out in all the other things he's been involved with. So in terms of 21st century theater geniuses, Lin-Manuel is very high up. If I was to go with, the greatest of the greats, Andrew Lloyd Webber. I'm a Webber girl. Okay. I used to be in a choir, and we had to do a whole repertoire of Sir Webber's or Lord Webber's, whatever his thing is. Whole catalogue of songs from Phantom of the Opera to Cats to Evita. And so that made me fall in love with Phantom of the Opera. So it's like one of my favorite ones to go see and watch and learn the stories. But yeah, anyway, that's enough about my little theater obsession. Guys. Okay, so we're back with Jeffrey, and we were just talking about like what it's like working with your team and the culture you guys have cultivated. And, as you're building a company, you're going to have more people come in. And if this is the current culture now with the, first 4 or 5 people who you've been building with, it makes me kind of curious in terms of what is going to be the foundational culture and values you're going to have within this company as you hire more people, when you have people on payroll eventually. What is that going to be? Because corporate governance is a thing. And we live in an age where we see massive organizations fail due to lack of flexibility and foresight in how their corporate governance structures are working. So now for people who are building in this present day and age, I don't think corporate governance should be an afterthought. It should be very foundational into how you're going to meet out in all the work that you do, ESG, whatever it's like across the board. So what do you think those foundational values and cultural aspects are going to be for you guys as you grow up?
It's a really great question. I think I like doing things in 3. So I think first off is I'm very big, like with the team that we've got, I'm very big on like giving them an opportunity to shine. So I would say like as the team expands more and like we like have more interns and things like that, one big thing would be like the encouragement of like development opportunities. So like for example we last week we helped out at an event and like one of the people on the team, like she had never done interviews before, and I was like, hey, so like do you want to come to this event? Like I can as long as I've got a camera and I've got a button that can record, I'm good. But I was just like, if you want to, interview people, like go ahead and do it. So this first time she'd done interviews, like she'd been interviewed by me, like in all fairness, like I did give her some questions, but I didn't necessarily like do like a whole run through and a practice. Yeah. So I kind of like threw her in the deep end. And like she was very surprised, but I told her like, no, like the interview you did were like really good. Because we were trying to get as much content from the event as possible. Yeah. So I was like, hey, look, like I'm going to try and interview like as many people as I can. But look, if you can interview like loads of people and like they got like, I think it was like maybe 10 interviews in total that really helped. So I think that would be one big thing, is like encouraging people to like step out and like get these development opportunities. So if you're a videographer and you want to know more about like how to do interviews, if you're someone who's wants to do like vice versa, you want to know more about videography, or maybe you're just looking for like opportunities to like like manage partnerships and things like that. I think that would be a big thing that like moving forward, that's something that I'd like to do. Secondly, is this like encouragement of like thinking differently. So not necessarily, like, I think sometimes like a lot of people when it comes to like starting a business or like being a business owner, they're just like, oh, I get lost in the numbers, I need to like pay to have like guests on, or I need to pay to have like advertising and all this stuff. But like a lot of people say that you don't, like you just need like something unique or different that you're doing that maybe not a lot of people are doing, or maybe no one's even doing. So I think encouraging that, like being a business that encourages that within its like its employees, is just like one that's just like, okay, cool, so we've got this, or like, I don't know, even like you said, like with the short form content, okay, so are we now going to add like B-roll footage with the short form content? Are we going to test that out and see if that works? Okay, you know, we've posted one thing every day. Are we going to try doing like a reel like 3 times a week to like post, like encouraging like different methods and strategies. So not always like being like, oh no, like, you know, it's worked this way, we're going to keep it this way. But like always open to trying new things. And like, even if it doesn't work out, like taking that as a lesson to see, okay, so we know that this isn't what our audience are interested in. So yeah, looking at doing stuff like that. And then I think finally is not necessarily just within like the employees, but I guess wider would be like encouraging people to like network and connect with others. So we already do that with the team. Like I say, like, oh, if you're interested in, like if we, I don't know, like we're interviewing a guest, I'm just like, cool. Like if you want to know if they're doing events, and I know that, or maybe they're an event company, I'm just like, hey, look, if you want to do like videography work for them, like don't feel like you have to ask me. Like if you want to build up your portfolio, go speak to them and see if they're interested in videography.
Yeah.
Because naturally I just like connecting people. I'm like, people say like I'm really good at networking. I like it, but I also know that sometimes like people will see me, especially like when I organize and like networking stuff, I just cut out. And that's not necessarily because like I'm not interested in the conversation, or maybe I'm like being antisocial or anything. It's mainly because like sometimes, like, especially when you're organizing something, you're running all over the place.
Yeah.
So for me, I just like connecting people to other people, because I'm just like, oh, you work in this space, or you've got to meet this person because they do this, or like, oh, I know this person that actually, you know, they're looking for a videographer. I can't, like, you can't work for us because we're like, I don't have that capacity, but I know like this person's looking for a videographer, so I can put you in touch with them, type thing. So those would be the main three things I would say that I'd like the company to have.
Okay. I think those are like very solid values to like represent. But, you know, as you were speaking, I had to ask then in terms of, you know, people think about the bottom lines, but in the space of, you know, having people collaborate with other people, how do you hope to like find that balance of, okay, your staff is still able to meet their commitments in-house while committing to other people? You know, is that could potentially be a problem.
Yeah.
Potentially.
100%.
You know, so is that something that, well, it's not a today problem. It might be a tomorrow problem. But, you know, I'm kind of curious in terms of like how you would envision trying to deal with that. Because I know like a lot of business, especially when you're just starting out, is going to be trial and error. But yeah, I was just kind of curious in terms of like, is that something that you would worry about, or would there be a good framework to kind of balance that out?
I'd say the frame, like, for the time being, like the framework is currently like we record episodes as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I also know, like, for example, I like when people live near where we record, I'm like, cool, if you want to come.
Yeah.
But I also know that I don't necessarily, like, if someone's coming from like across London, I don't necessarily at this moment in time like pay for their transport fees.
Yeah.
So I've told them as well, like, ultimately it's about just like committing to the work. So like, for example, we've got 2 videographers who are like they have an internship program where like students at Brunel have to do like 50 hours of filming from September to March. So with those 2, I've told them, hey, look, like, I can't always guarantee you like filming every week to meet that. When we do have like big events, I can guarantee you loads of hours, or if we're like got loads of recordings in one week and you're nearby, I can guarantee that as well. But I've also said, like, I don't want you to miss out on like passing that module. So for now, the main thing has just been like, hey, look, if there's capacity for you to work, like if I've got stuff for you to do, I will give you that to do, and I'll give you a deadline of when it needs to be done. But if it's like, okay, it's a bit of a more chill week, or maybe like, for example, like I used to like we were saying before about like when you're starting out, before I used to do I still do, but like I used to do the editing of the videos and all that stuff. So for me, I'm just like, hey, look, if I can do it and I need you to work on something else, I'm gladly able to like take a step back and be like, you know, take a step forward and be like, okay, cool. So I know that we're not recording any episodes this week. We recorded like 3 last week. I can like edit those over the week. But actually I need you to like do this or do that. So sometimes it's just about that collaboration, but I think like you mentioned, it's an important thing of letting people know like what your like contract, like I guess in the bigger term and like long term, like when they are like have a proper contract, and when it's like a, you know, more of an like official thing. It's kind of like what my manager, like my current manager says to me, is it's just like whatever you're contracted to do. And like if people are asking you to do stuff out of that, that's cool, but that's not what your job is. So don't feel like you have to like do all this other stuff. Like we said, like someone, I don't know, like we introduced them to someone, they were just like, oh, actually, I need you to do this for me. And they're just like, oh, actually, I can't because, you know, I need to pick up the mic stuff. And they're just like, well, this isn't good enough. I turn around and be like, hey, look, like, ultimately they work for me. Them helping you out is just like a nice, I'm not letting them, but I introduce you, so you need to also remember that they are supporting me and the business. So you can't just turn around to them and say, I'm taking them from you, or like I'm gonna they're gonna do my work instead of yours because I need them to do this or that. So yeah, that would be my thing.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just curious, future casting, as they say. So I'm very curious to see how businesses today are being built, and the fact that we're getting to have this discussion is giving me an insight into what the Gen Z and 21st century business owner and founder is looking to do with the companies of tomorrow, today and tomorrow. And I guess now we're going to segue into like pick up the mic proper. This podcasting network has, so far, you guys have a lot of podcasts underneath your umbrella, right? So you've got your student and well-being stuff that's like behind the scenes or behind the curtain for what it's like in uni. So No One Told You, as well as the student guide for people who are currently in university. And then you've got the fun stuff like the sci-fi and anime podcast. And I love anime. And so to hear that like it's an anime podcast, I'm like, please tell me more. I need to know more about what's happening with Jujutsu Kaisen. I want to know how the, people are thinking in the studios. So yeah, I was just wondering, what is that, like managing several different podcasts in several different capacities, different spaces, different topics. What is that like?
It's definitely interesting. I think when we started to add all this additional stuff. Cool.
Okay, here we are. We're back again. So Jeffrey, pick up the mic. This podcast network has, several different podcasts underneath its umbrella. So you've got your student facet, which is like, your student development and well-being podcast. You also have the business aspects of your podcast and then the entertainment aspects of it. So you've got So No One Told You. You've got Hustle Chronicles. You've got a podcast on sci-fi and anime, which is like, I don't know much about sci-fi, but I love anime. So it's like, there's so much that's happening all together. And I'm kind of curious, how do you guys manage, working through all those different podcasts? What does that look like? What's the behind the scenes? What's the project management looking like?
So yeah, I think when we started, it was a lot because we were just you get in that mindset of, oh, okay, everything needs to just come out for all these individual podcasts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think now we're just okay, well, because also the anime, gaming, and sci-fi and fantasy ones, they're all on their own channels. So for us, we basically say all the stuff that's about student development, living on campus, entrepreneurship and business, they're all on one YouTube channel. So we just see it as, okay, we get that you might not find all of the podcasts that we produce under that YouTube channel relevant to you. But instead, we're going to just our main focus has always been the student guide. That was the first one.
Yeah.
So when I was talking about being renamed, that was the one that Pick Up the Mic came, the Pick Up the Mic podcast came from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to go to it, it's so now we're just okay, so that podcast needs to at least have something coming out once every week. Whether it's a teaser for the next episode, whether it's the actual episode, whether it's looking back on some stuff that was discussed in an episode, it just needs to have that continual movement. For the other podcasts, under that Pick Up the Mic YouTube channel, we just say, well, people would we'll upload sporadically.
Yeah.
It's we're not saying none of that stuff is important, but we also know that like I said, I work part-time. Everyone else either is working full-time, are currently a uni student, or is not in London. So there's no sort of point of putting pressure on people to be okay, well, we need to do 3 podcast episodes, because we did that before. I won't lie. There literally were times where I did so when I was working at Brunel, I would do 2 podcast recordings back to back, a madman. And it was just it was tiring. I'd get home super late, and that was after work. I was working full time at the time. So I'd literally go somewhere, record for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then go home and then be working the next day. So for me, I was just no, I'm kind of done with trying to do get loads of content out at once. So for now, I'm just let's just keep it something needs to come out minimum each week. Ideally, whether it's short form or long form content needs to come out like mainly short term each day is the dream, and then at least long form, one for each of those channels each week. But we also say, like, we understand that, like, hey, like, life happens sometimes, so we can't just like put pressure to always get this content out. So about managing it, it's just ensuring that, like, as long as the content's good, we're happy to like wait, like, you know, say, oh, the next episode's coming soon, and not necessarily put pressure on when that needs to come out. But yeah, we also understand that, like, hey, like, just like life hits everyone, like life hits us too. So there's no point in like forcing people to rush for content to come out.
Okay. No, I think that's really interesting. And I think part of my next follow-up question with that is, like, you know, there's one that feels more like a series that follows each other. So like with the student well-being one, right? So you have an element that's like focused on current students and the element that's for like post-grads. And like, so no one told you that, like, when you graduate uni, you're going to have an existential crisis, you know, like, well, that's been my experience. You know, when I finished my master's, I think after I handed in my dissertation, I was just like, I don't have a job. What am I doing? Am I a failure? People are working, you know? So it's all those different, you know, dynamics. And you guys seem to cover that in all the dynamics that you have. You know, was that an intentional way to kind of like shape the journey? So it's like, okay, if you are in first year, second year, third year, this is what you should look at. If you a recent graduate, master's or undergrad, this is for you. Like, what was the thought process to how like that sort of breakdown? Was there something that you saw that kind of inspired you to like, we need to have this as separate podcasts and not put them all together as one?
Yeah, I think for us, we were just like trying to condense it into one podcast just wouldn't work, because we were just like, and we had like mentors at the time through programs we were on. I mean, they were just like, hey, look, like, you're doing a lot, but they were just like, sometimes it's just going to all this stuff is going to get lost in the channel, because you'll be like, oh, cool, like, we're doing this. And then it's just like, oh, psych, like, you can't see that video because we're posting about something else. So I think for us, we were just like, yeah, no, have these different things. So like you mentioned, like having So No One Told You was something that launched, I think maybe last year or 2 years ago. And it was literally just because we were just like, hey, look, like it was just out of conversation with a mentor. They were just like, oh, you know, like, one interesting thing to possibly talk about would be like things students don't know. And we were just like, that's actually kind of interesting, like, to have a whole podcast that's literally on stuff that students don't know about university. But also for all of the podcasts that we do, they're all in like, well, for the most part, they're in different formats, they're different styles. Some of them are like interviews, some of them are more like discussions between like 2 or 3 people. Some of them are like just like have their own like segments that come with it. So the student guide is the one that has like segments that people would associate with it. So we've always also tried to not only just like differentiate it so like people know what they're checking into, but also when they come and like watch it, it's not like, oh, I'm literally just watching like another Q&A podcast from Pick Up the Mic. It's like, no, it's a discussion group one, or oh, actually it's one where it's more of like an open forum, so they'll just like go with questions as the discussion like goes on.
Okay, that's interesting. And I guess then with each of the different podcasts, so you have Hustle Chronicles, which is what we're on today. Like, guys, like, hello. So you got podcasts like Hustle Chronicles, and then there's the gaming, the sci-fi, and the anime one, and then there's the student, you know, well-being ones. And it makes me question, so, you know, how do you manage the growth and the metrics of each one? What are the things that are very, you know, what are the things that you guys are picking up on to see what's resonating? How is growth going? What are some things that you feel like are growing more? Is if one is growing a bit more than the others, is there a focus on that one a bit more? Or it's like, you know, how does that work in funneling all 3 and your different audiences? Yeah,
it's a really good question. For us, it's very like it's interesting to us because the 3 separate channels from Pick Up the Mic, they launched like last year. So at the time they launched, like we had like over 1,000 subscribers on the main Pick Up the Mic channel. And we were kind of just like, well, we're basically like going back to basics with YouTube because we're now like trying to rebuild new YouTube channels after like building Pick Up the Mic. So So yeah, it's been a bit of like an interesting space for those 3 channels because like as I mentioned, like we're not like with Pick Up the Mic, like having one big channel is nice because it means like as long as one video comes out, like, people will see it. Having one for like having more channels that you manage means that now you have to be aware of like not every like person's going to see it. So I think for us, the big like learning curve has been like, I guess, trying to regrow those channels and focus on like, especially because we don't always, so like the 2 Maesters of all 3 channels records the most content because like I said, those 2 just manage it. So it's just finding like the space and time to just record the others or like trying to, you know, post like old content. So like if we posted, oh, hey, like we were at Comic-Con, then like reposting like short clips or maybe like the full episode or full video, on those other channels to try and like drum up traffic. Some like I think especially more now with the 2 Maces, for example, like they now plan it around like stuff that's coming out. So rather than just talking about like their favorite TV shows and films, they're kind of like putting it out sporadically. So like for example, the episode that's going to be coming out this week is all about Indiana Jones because there's a new Indiana Jones game that's coming out this year, and they spoke about it last year. So even like with that, trying to keep it like not necessarily like topical but like relevant, so you know, if a TV show is coming out or a sci-fi film's coming out and a trailer's just released, trying to do a discussion around it when that trailer's come out, even for like the short film content. So like we did a real what was it, I think it was when it was in June, I don't know, but there was a sci-fi film that came out last year and like we did it around like when that sci-fi film came out, when I think when House of the Dragon like was coming out, they were doing weekly episodes on that. When Loki season 2 came out, we released like Loki season 1, like a wrap-up episode they did of like all the things that happened. So trying to keep on top of like that has been like a good way to grow. Again, I will say it depends on like your time and what you can manage, because I know for the team, like they work, like I said, they work full time. So for them, it's like, okay, so not only do I have to like watch it, I'm now watching it, then I'm thinking about what I can discuss for this episode. And then I'm thinking about like, how can we like make sure that we don't like it doesn't get lost. So it's not like, oh, you know, we tried to record it this week, we couldn't, now we're going to move it back and record it again, and things like that. So yeah, it's about finding that balance. Okay, not bad. And you know, for you guys, what's the most important metric? Like, how do you measure? Is it growth, or is it like the impacts, the reviews? What are the things that are, you know, most valuable for you guys and with everything you're doing? I'd say it's like both growth and feedback. So like, I don't know, like we're on like 700 and something Instagram followers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, honestly, like we don't believe it. We find it weird sometimes. Even for like LinkedIn, but like with LinkedIn, I know like, yes, because obviously like if you don't know and you don't manage a LinkedIn page, you might not know that you can like send, you can invite people that you've connected with on LinkedIn to follow your page. So, so yeah, you can send it to like, I think 250 people a month, and then basically, and then so the way it works is, once someone's accepted, you can get that credit back. So if you send it, I don't know, like over 1 month, you send it to 250 people and all 250 like accept, then you get that credit back. If at the end of the month they don't, then you just basically like don't get that credit back. But yeah, so sporadically I've just been like adding people to follow the page, but we have had like people out of the blue just follow, like not from anything that we've done. Maybe it's because they've seen like a friend was on the podcast and they want to know more, or whether they've they've seen a post so they want to do it. But yeah, I think growth has been a key thing, because like we've only been around for like coming up in March will be 3 years. So to be around for not that long, but to still sort of see the podcast grow, even like I said, like the fact that we started like 3 new channels, and while they might not necessarily have like a big subscriber growth, they've had a big impact because like the amount of followers that those channels have had, the amount of views that those videos have got, and those are views for videos that aren't necessarily like ones that we've been like actively promoting or like always posting about, has been really good. But yeah, feedback is also good, because like I say, like one key thing that I learned one key thing about like being an entrepreneur that I think is really important is, as I mentioned before, people get lost in the numbers. But one key thing to remember is like you don't need like everyone to engage in your stuff. You just need like your audience or your customers or like, so for us, like with audio stuff, we're just like obviously like we want more than one view, but like we're just like, at least if one person like watches this episode and says like, wow, this was like really impactful, I learned so much about like whatever topic, we're like, okay, you know, we're doing a good job. Because we're just like, it's not like, yeah, people might say, oh, I've got like 50,000 views on this video, or like my video's gone viral on TikTok or whatever. But I think for us, we're just like, yeah, like that's all good and all, but essentially we just want these videos to be stuff that can help people. So even like, funnily enough, like I did an episode last year with, so when I was at Brunel, I did it with the societies administrator about like just talking about like how you would set up a society at the university, what are some of the societies, why people should join them. Some of they were Brunel students, so talking about like the societies they joined. You know, I'd released the episode. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how well it did, but I think it did pretty well. And then, the funny thing was, so we still have like close connections with the student union there. And they were telling me like, you know, we want to do like, you know, we're looking to do like short form content on like how people can set up societies and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I've already done that. Like, I've done the video. I was just like, I can send you the link, but yeah, I've done the video. I did it with the like former societies administrator. Like, if you're interested in it and you want to like make shorts of it, I don't mind. Like, it's like, if people find it useful, that's cool. If you want me to re-record it, I'm happy to do that. And then they ended up posting it and they tagged us in it. But yeah, sometimes I think that's the funny thing is it might not, and that's a good thing with like long form content is, it might not be necessarily useful to anyone like when you've released it or when you've recorded it, but you never know like in, I don't know, like a month's or like a year's time. Like if you told me when we recorded that episode that the student, like it would then get posted as a reel and people would use it as a resource to encourage people to like set up societies, I would be like, it's possible, but you know, I'm not seeing it. So yeah, I think that's a really weird thing. Even like when I was doing, for my master's, I did a placement, and when I was working at, within the placement team, so to help undergrad students find placements. That was the interesting thing, because I did an episode with someone talking about like how to set up, like how to look for a placement, how to get placements for a degree. And literally, as you mentioned, like the funny thing was that the deputy director for my department like saw the video. And he was just like, oh, like I know you do podcasting, and he was just like, it would be really cool if you did one on placements. And I was like, I've done loads, like I can send you the whole list. And he said it's really good because usually like when like university departments are trying to gauge feedback or see what students are interested in or like what they like and don't like, you know, they might send a form, they might add like a, you know, you get an Amazon voucher and stuff, but they don't necessarily always get like accurate or loads of good feedback. But they said like having something like the podcast discussion either A, confirms like if they've heard other students have said, oh, actually these are the issues that we've faced. And you have like someone who's not working at the university who's just like having a conversation about something, and they're interviewing students who are raising the same thing, then they said that that's a clear indicator to help you realize that, you know, there's other issues like going on. So that would be my main thing. Is it's very interesting to just see that space.
Amazing. And yet there, as we were talking, there's so many things I picked up, and I have a background in law. So my legal mind is, you know, ticking. I'm like, okay, so you're sending these videos to these people. What about your IP rights? You know, so as a company, how are you protecting your IP rights? How are you also ensuring that you're being paid, even though you've done this content before? Apart from, okay, you're being tagged in those things. Is there any, you know, financial remuneration that you're getting? Or is that a thing where it's like, for now, you're okay to not have that as a priority and it's more about the publicity of it? But still, it's your IP because you're the ones creating this. You know, you're the ones putting in the labor to edit and create all of this content. How is that, you know, protected? Because one of the things I struggle with, and I think about when I think of the podcasting space and this media space, podcasting is still fairly new. It's like over 20 or 30 years old, but it's really coming to the forefront in the last 5 years, give or take. And in that space, you know, these are the things that are coming into mind, because it's then like, how am I making money? Because a lot of people aren't making money with their podcast immediately, or even if you set up a media company, you're not making money in the immediate start. It takes a bit of time. So how are those things that you guys have been thinking about, and like how are you mitigating or like cutting your losses or in all of those? areas?
So I think that's definitely a key thing. Like when it comes to just business in general, like you said, like it's just the IP. So I think with at least with the student union, like we've got that connection of that they do help to support, like for the service that we like upload the audio version of the podcast, that they help to cover the cost for that, which has been really good. And it's something that's like helped support the podcast. I think, like you said, it's just figuring out those agreements. So, like, for example, with like the main issue before was because I was working, like, even though I was doing like a placement, it was basically a full-time job because as a master's student, you can do a full-time job for your placement. So when I was working there, I couldn't basically get any money from what I was doing because I was just like, because you're employed by the university. If they pay me for pick up the mic, like it's a conflict of interest at the end of the day. Yeah. So now, like that's something that we are like looking into. So like even funnily enough, my my manager from my undergrad placement, which was at Brunel, like she was just like, oh, okay, so I know, like she was just like, I'm just gonna give you this as like a mission, so to speak. She was just like, use this like time that, because she was just like, I know you're not going to stay at Brunel forever, so use this time that you're here for your master's placement to just like build up connections, like show people what you're doing, connect with them, do all of this cool stuff. Then when you do leave, give it a couple of like, you know, start to have these conversations of, oh, I'm leaving Brunel, but if you want to like collaborate with Pick Up the Mic, like I'm happy to do that. I did all of this stuff, which has led to, like I said, like the interns that we've now got with the university, the like supporting, like getting paid to like do like events and stuff. So now, so I'd say that's another thing as well, is like if you know that like your ideal customer is also with your workplace, like don't feel like you have to stay with your workplace. Like try, like obviously like if you enjoy the job and it's great and all, sick, but if you know that your workplace technically could pay you for it, then that's definitely something to look into. And that's something that I know my my current team manager, that was something that she raised with me as well, because she's like she used to work in, like she's got a lot of experience in like events and like planning stuff. So even she was like, when I tell her like, oh yeah, we do like events and all of this stuff, she was just like, hey look, like don't, like if you're going to do something and you're going to like, I don't know, like message like a co-working space and you're just like, oh yeah, we're going to do like, we would love to do a networking event with your members and all of this stuff. She was just like, if it's going to benefit them and you can show like it's clearly like a unique thing that you're doing, don't feel like you have to then like necessarily have to pay them for it, because she was just like, you're adding value to them. So I think like you mentioned, when you're doing like collaborations with other organizations, have that clear understanding of, like, people might say it sounds wrong, but it's more to do with like, ultimately when you work with someone, you're giving your time. So either there should be like a financial benefit of they're paying you for your services, or there should be like, to me at least, there should be like a, I don't know what the other benefit would be, but like not necessarily like a networking one, but something like something that can mean that it's going to benefit your business. So whether it's, oh, I might not be able to pay you, but I can connect you with like all these great organizations that I work with, or I can't pay you, but I can give you a space to use for free if you need it. So having those like agreements are good, because it means that like, A, you might be able to cover costs for stuff that you were currently paying for, but it also means that you can like then expand your growth. That would be my thing.
That's very interesting. And thank you for answering, because I think sometimes we do get bogged down on the numbers and like, you know, making our bottom lines or whatever. But I think when there's too much focus on the bottom line, you miss out on the other opportunities that you can gain from it. So 100%. The collaborations you're talking about with the different organizations, the fact that they can give you a space to use that's covering overhead costs, that's like huge capital that most people just starting out can't even afford to do. So I think those are the good trade-offs to like really consider. And so for anyone who's listening, who's like, you know, just building something, I think those are valuable nuggets to like put into consideration. Yes, I know there are people who are 25 and they've just bought their first house or made their first million, or their companies are valued at that. But it's taking them a couple of years before they could get to that kind of valuation. And they've had to like, you know, say no to money, but other things have led towards that. So really think about that in your own approach to how you're building your own companies or business, if that's something that you're doing, or even in your workplace. You know, you might not get the raise for what you want, but alternative benefits you can gain from that. Those are just some nuggets to take away. And so you mentioned as well a few moments ago about Pick Up the Mic entering its third year in March of 2024.
Yes.
Exciting.
Yeah,
Your baby's 3 years old. How does that make you feel?
Pretty good. It's been great to see how it's like grown over the last 3 years. So I'm excited for the future.
Exciting. And as we're approaching the third year for Pick Up the Mic, I'm kind of curious in terms of like, where do you see the company heading in its third year in 2024 and maybe beyond? What are the things that you want to bring in? What are the kind of podcasts you want to bring into the fold? Or what other elements are you looking to put into the fold? Because Pick Up the Mic, as it stands now, is not just a podcast network. Obviously, you have a media and production element to it. You're doing event videography. You're doing long form, short form content for different companies, for different events. So what is the future? What are we thinking?
I think, again, with like 3 key things. So I think one is we want to, like one key thing is supporting like more young people. Like obviously we produce this content, which is great, but we want to have like more of a direct support thing. So I can't say it. I don't remember what episode, like honestly, it's been like 3 weeks of January and a lot of recordings. But I teased it on another episode. We do have something that we're going to hopefully launch on like our birthday to say like, hey, look, like this is something we're looking to do in the future. So get in touch with us if you want to, get involved. The second thing that I would say is we're looking to like work with more, like collaborate with more individuals. So we want to help other because I know like friends who've got like their own podcasts who've had to like take a pause because of work and stuff. So encouraging them, maybe bring them into the fold. And then finally just supporting people's dreams. I would say that's the third thing.
Okay, so you've given us some insights into what's coming into year 3. So let's imagine that I have, Aladdin's lamp here. And Robin Williams' genie comes out and says, you have 3 wishes. And I guess my question is, what would those 3 wishes be in terms of like, who would you like to partner with? Who would you like to have backing you? This could be if you're looking for investors or whatever, or like sponsors for some of your shows. Who would you like to partner with? Who are some of the people you'd like to have on your podcast? And the last one, I guess, you can tell me what your last wish is. I'm not going to give you the last wish. You can tell me what your last wish would be.
So people to partner with, I think the one that comes immediate to mind is, so for the student guide, we have a section that we call takeaway, and we joke about like, it's not to do with like takeaway food, it's a takeaway message to take from the episode. So we would love, I guess, like we keep joking about it, we would love to have like a food sponsor, like a food app sponsor that, to be like, oh, this is takeaway brought by, like, I'm not saying they do sponsor, so please don't come. But like, let's say it was like Deliveroo or Just Eat, like say something like that, because we said it would be really funny to be like, oh yeah, like we're not actually going to have like takeaway food, but we're giving you, they're sponsoring a takeaway message for you to have for today.
And so that's brilliant.
Yeah, so that'd be really cool. I'm trying to think if there's like another media. There isn't really like another, like I'm an Xbox fan, so if Xbox or like Crunchyroll sponsored the gaming or the anime podcast,
come on in.
I would be super happy. Even because I know, funnily enough, Namco Bandai, like we're recording in Camden, and Namco Bandai have their store like set up in Camden Market.
Oh, crazy.
So even like to have the anime one and just have like free like
Funko Pops.
Yeah.
I was so happy.
Just like have it in the background, just be like, oh yeah, cool. Like even like, I guess it would be hard with like all the podcast like equipment and stuff, but even to do like maybe like one episode in their store, or like with even like the Uzumaki restaurant in Tottenham Court Road, like to do something there would be pretty cool. So yeah, those would be like the dream sponsors. Yes, I've said it always, like one person definitely that I'd love to have is Trevor Noah. I love Trevor Noah on The Daily Show. I loved his interview styles. I love like the just the way he acted on the show. So yeah, to either be given the opportunity to interview him or for him to interview me, like my plan, well, obviously he's left The Daily Show now, which kind of puts a damper on their plan, but my plan was just like, I was like, I'm going to work towards it. I was like, Trevor Noah's going to interview me. Funnily enough, he does have his own podcast though.
Yes, he does with Spotify.
Yeah. So So Trevor, I'm calling it now. If you're looking for a guest, just hit me up.
Please come on. Okay. Yeah, our brother.
Exactly.
You know?
But yeah, apart from Trevor Noah, I'm not a comedian, so I wouldn't fit on the podcast. But I don't have a comedy as my background. But like not Trevor Noah. Actually, not his comedy one. Kevin Hart has like Cold as Balls, which is basically the when they go in like an ice bath and he does interviews. That would be probably like. I mean, like, I'd probably suffer. And I'm saying, like, oh, it'd be really cool now. But at the time, I'm probably like, this is the worst decision ever. But yeah, to do something like that would be really cool because I feel like it's even like from a way to do interviews with people. Yeah. It's like a really interesting, like, I know like a lot of the people he interviews are like athletes, so they do cold baths anyways. But yeah, to me, it's like, kind of funny, like it's a really cool thing that makes sense. And I know he even did like he's got his own network. I think it's like the LOL network is what he's got. So even like I know he does like interviews with people while doing like sports. So I think he did like dodgeball with Anna Kendrick. He did like basketball with someone else. So like even like something like so to find a way to do an interview with Kevin Hart would be pretty cool. I'm trying to think, is there one other person that I can think of? I can't. Dream.
Okay, so what will be your final wish?
My final wish.
So Robin Williams is Genie's here, and he's like, one more wish. What would that be?
It's a tough one, but I think generally it would be to just like my long-term goal with Pick Up My Mic would be to be like an angel investor or to be someone that can like invest in people's businesses, because I do agree that sometimes, like I had a discussion with some friends of mine, but like we were going for like a funding competition, and like a lot of us felt like, hey, look, a lot of the like people that win, like the people that won, a lot of them were like product-based businesses, not service, and we just felt like, hey, look, like sometimes service-based businesses don't really get that attention because it's like, oh, like we can't really necessarily see the investment, or like, oh, we're paying for like, we're going to give you this money to like, I don't know, like buy equipment and stuff, but that might not necessarily translate into like growth or stuff. But I think for me, sometimes it's just more like, so like I know Stephen Bartlett spoke about it on, actually I guess he would be an interesting person to have on, or to be on his podcast. But
I do like Steve.
Yeah. But he had like, he did a talk, he posted something on LinkedIn where he was just like, like he basically said like when he's on Dragon Den, he doesn't necessarily, like he said, when it comes to investments, people think it's the idea, and he's like, no, people invest on you. So if you aren't interested in your business, if you like he said, I think for his first business, like he got investment from someone, and he didn't know how to develop a website, so he gave equity to this web developer that he found for that business. And he said like the person, like he didn't have all the pieces together that the person was looking for. He was literally just like, hey, I've got this idea, like I don't know if it's gonna work, but you know, if you're interested in backing, I'd love your support. And he was just like, yeah. And he didn't invest in me because of who I am, or like because of necessarily the idea, but he invested because I believed in it and I showed him that passion. So I think that like to be able to like to be an angel investor, or even like someone like you know, not like necessarily like Oprah, like you get a car, but even to be like, oh, you know, like, hey, look, like I don't know, to just have that like casual, like just sit down with someone and just like speak to them and be like, wow, you really want to do this? And they're just like, yeah, I'd love to do this. This is my business. Kind of like Undercover Boss. I've said, and I'm saying it now. Like, I don't know who runs I don't know if it's still on. I don't know who runs it. But like me, my sister, and my mum. Don't ask me why. Like, before, so me and my sister, when we went to Tenerife, we were watching like Undercover Boss because it was like a thing on TV. And then when we came back, we were still watching it. So our mum was watching it too. And we just said like, I'd like, in all honesty, I feel like it would be cool in the UK, but I do like that, like when it comes to Undercover Boss, there are people that are literally just like, yeah, so I can see that you're really passionate about your studies, or you want to go back into academia, or I don't know, you've got this cool idea, you want to learn this new skill, so I'm going to fund you to do this. Because to me, it's just like nice to see like people who, like, I don't know, like I think everyone, especially when you're a business owner, you're just sometimes like, I don't see like my idea is as good as others are telling me it is. But I think to have someone that could turn around and be like, no, I believe, like I'd be like, you clearly are good at what you're doing or what you want to do. So I'm going to invest in your future so you can do it. So yeah, that would be my third thing, to be able to whether it's finances, whether it's like training, time, like whatever, give people that platform and like say, hey, look, I'm going to invest in you because I believe that you're very passionate about what you want to do.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think you're already well on your way doing that with the interns you've got at Brunel.
Thank you. Yeah.
Don't despise the days of small beginnings, guys. You know, you start as you mean to go on. And that's a pattern I see with, again, companies of today that are going to become companies of tomorrow that are just starting out. It's a very interesting take. And I guess we've come to the end of the episode. My heart breaks a little bit at the end of every episode. And I guess my very last question to you as we close it out is, what has been the most impactful thing for you throughout this journey of building this company so far?
I wouldn't. It's a cop-out answer, but I wouldn't say it's a moment. I'd say it's probably like last year, because last year I think is when the business like had its biggest growth. Which again, for like I know a lot of people say that, you know, in your second year or maybe within your first year of business it might grow a lot, but I think for us it was because like, so last year a lot of stuff happened. We came to like, we were nominees, finalists for a lot of awards and funding opportunities, whereas the previous year we like didn't get there, so that was a big thing. Last year was the first time we ever did not one but two in-person networking events, and those both went really well. We got a lot of good feedback. We've got another one coming up. I posted about it. Let's Empower, our women's International Women's Day networking event is coming back in March. 1st of March is when it'll be back, so keep an eye out for the ticket link. It will be, well, it might not. Yeah, we'll see when this episode drops, but it should be out by the time you're watching this. But yeah, I think like last year was just a year of a lot of stuff happening. I did my speech at graduation where I got to speak about like I didn't necessarily like bore people. I say bore. I didn't like go into detail about like pick up the mic and how I started it, but I said like, oh hey, look, like I understand like the uncertainty or like feeling like you failed or your business hasn't worked out and all this stuff, and I was just like, hey look, linking to what you're saying about small beginnings, like I'll keep it as a surprise. Okay. There's another surprise. It will come out before the birthday. I just need to wait for it to come. But one key quote that I said is kind of like within the team is like our motto is this quote that, again, a lot of people think might think like when I say I got it, like it's a Latin quote. They think, he studied Latin, or like he's like, I'm just like, no, I'm a gamer. So I've never played the game, but there's a game series called Uncharted where they have, the main character has a necklace and it's got a ring on it, and it's basically got this engraving that says Sig Parvis Magna, which means greatness from small beginnings. And it's a quote. I don't know if it's like, a lot of it is like history. It was coined, or like Sir Francis Drake is referred to when that quote's discussed. But I think even someone said like there's like, it's the literal translation is even more deeper than just greatness from small beginnings. It's like in your small beginnings, greatness will come from it. So it's even bigger than just saying, oh yeah, greatness will come from small beginnings. It's just like, no, like enjoy your small beginnings because great things can come from it. Yeah. So I think for me, that would be like my motto. That's what last year just felt like. It just felt like a lot of these like things that we were trying out, we were testing, like we were like putting ourselves out there. We were just like getting it, like it was coming to fruition and things were coming like out of it. So yeah, I think last year would definitely be it. Like when we're doing like a roundup of the year, like you sometimes, I guess, don't always see the impact that you have. Yeah. But yeah, it was nice to see like at the end, like when I was like working on posts of like, what actually did we do last year? I was just like, actually no, like we did do a lot, and a lot of stuff that we didn't do the previous year, and we probably wouldn't have done if you told me we would have done that, I probably would have been like, maybe. Like, we might have done a few things, but not all of the stuff that we ended up doing. So yeah, that would be... So yeah, my moment would be last year as a whole, just like a year of growth. Amazing. And I think that's, a fantastic note to end the episode on. Thank you very much. This has been a very brilliant conversation. I'm going away with a lot because I'm just like... I'm buzzing with ideas, because like I said, I freelance podcast produce on the side, and it's just making me think about like, there's a lot that can happen in such a small space of time. And I'm personally in a bit of a transition to
a lot of nuggets from you. So thank you, my very wise sir.
You're very welcome.
My wish for you guys that I'm going to put in for the third year is beyond just growth. I hope the third year is a manifestation of the future to come.
Thank you.
So anything that you want, even the gaming aspect, I'm like, Twitch, please be coming in. Like a Twitch channel or something that you have like community or whatever. But I do hope that this year will begin manifestations of the future to come for the company overall and for you and all your own personal ambitions as well. But yeah, guys, this is the end of the Hustle Chronicles.
Yes.
And you can find this podcast wherever podcasts are found. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, etc. It's so many places. And Jeffrey, any plugs for where people can find you, follow you?
Yeah. So it's funny when usually I'm the one to do the outro and I'm not doing this time. So you can find on YouTube, let me go through all of them. So that channel, Pick Up the Mic, or if you type in Pick Up the Mic Network, we appear. For the anime one, Senseis of Anime. If gaming one, Pick Up the Controller. And for the sci-fi and fantasy, the Two Maesters. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Jeffrey_Pick Up the Mic. The name might change because I realized that I associate to Pick Up the Mic, but it's supposed to be a channel for all the stuff that I do. So I just need to figure out what my name will be. But if you type in Jeffrey Pick Up the Mic for now, _Pick Up the Mic, you should get me. And then on LinkedIn, it's Jeffrey Oyinlola. You the guy with like a sitting and smiling. That's me. And I'm trying to think if there's anything. Sorry, I should have said as well. We're on TikTok and Instagram. The podcast. So it's at Pick Up the Mic Network on TikTok, Instagram, and we're just Pick Up the Mic on LinkedIn. So feel free to send a message, get involved if you want to be on the podcast. We have a speaker nomination form, so you can nominate yourself or nominate someone else.
Amazing.
So feel free to get in touch.
That is fantastic. Okay, you guys. So all of that will be linked in the show notes. Yes. Thank you for having me on as your guest host today.
Thank you. It's good to be on the other side of the table.
It is good, isn't it? But this has been really fun. And maybe I'll be back on again as a guest host or whatever. But Okay, guys. Have a good day.
See you later. Perfect.